नौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्त जनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिना नतोऽस्मि। हरि ओम. We all are students of Vedanta, and we have been reading different scriptures. We read Gita, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, Puranas, Itihasas, all the Vidyas that are there, we are trying to learn it. A question always comes to the mind: when am I going to achieve the ultimate result? There is an element of confusion in the sadhana because we think and we perceive it as very vast. Every pravachanakara comes and talks about different ideas, different concepts in Adhyatma. On one hand, we listen to Atma, Atma, Atma so many times without even having an iota of idea of experience of Atman. Sometimes it is frustrating to listen or to study for a long time without any results. Again, there is a friction between what we are doing in this world and what the Vedanta is saying. It appears irreconcilable. We think that, look, I have a problem with my daughters, with my family, with my finances, with my fiance, with my husband, with my job, with the interaction with other people. People have not been behaving nicely with me. The world is such a good place, bad place, miserable place. So we have different type of problems on our hand, and we are trying to find a solution in Adhyatma, and the solution is not coming handy because none of our problems seem to be mitigated. Somehow we push ourselves to continue the reading of Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad and Yoga Sutra, but somewhere deep within the mind, we do ask a question to ourselves: why is it that I am not reaching a stage which I am supposed to reach? Why is it that I am not getting out of the whole study what I am supposed to get? I am still an angry person. I still have fights with my husband. I still have fights with my wife. I still feel miserable. I still need money. So it is very common observation that this thing does happen. And this is where we need to understand, in the light of Patanjali Maharaj's Yoga Sutra, that this situation that you are in now, and I'm talking more of the situation of the mind, the mental condition. The situation that we are in now is the result of past births and the karmas that are done during the past births. So we cannot forget that there are different stations in the journey. The journey is northwards, urdhvagami. So the journey that is supposed to take us to the destination called Atman has to travel through variety of millions of stations. Each station is called one birth. Depending upon what I have done in the previous births, or depending upon which stations I have successfully traveled, my next station is pre-decided. Now the train or the vehicle that has started from a particular station may get derailed and may go backward again instead of going forward, because that would depend upon what have you deserved, whether to go backward or forward. In other words, your karma, phala, vipaka, fructification of the karmas is what decides which station you will be in. So when we are born in this birth, observe yourself and you will come to know which station you are. Now, what are the tests through which you will diagnose that which state or which station you are? Are you going upwards in the station so that you can ultimately reach a destination? Or are you in a circuitous route where you're not going upwards, but actually going downwards or downwards, upwards? What is happening? And to have these tests is to verify oneself in the light of three gunas. If in your life, in your current life, if you are able to very discriminatively analyze yourself, which is called as pure spiritual introspection, if you're able to do that, then you can see whether you are having higher sattva guna or higher rajoguna or higher tamoguna. That would decide the station that you have arrived at. Incidentally, the station that you have arrived at, that means the preponderance of a particular guna shall decide whether you will progress faster towards the destination or not. So if we are feeling frustrated about not reaching the destination faster in spite of our wish, that means we have still not inculcated the kind of guna that is required for this onward journey. Sattva guna is a first class ticket. Rajoguna is a second class ticket, and a tamoguna is a third class ticket. The first class ticket is required for a smooth journey. In fact, the journey does give jolts, but the jolts are less felt in first class because of proper condition of the coach. In the similar manner, the one who has done preponderance of sattva in this life shall have natural inclination towards the spiritual studies, and he will progress faster on those lines. For others, it would be a kind of a burden. The very fact that you have a courage of assimilating in the morning for a Patanjali Yoga Sutra class, which is not an easy treatise, indicates that you do have sattva guna in you, because of which there is a desire that even though I may not understand completely, even though it means I have to disturb my sleep and get up in the morning, even though I have to really bother my brain to understand what Patanjali Maharaj is saying, you still intend to remain present for the class. That is because of sattva guna preponderance. Now, this is not something very common to have sattva guna on a higher ascendance. The sattva guna is less required when you go for listening to the stories. A story does not require you to think a lot. That being the reason, although it has a scriptural level, Ramayana attendance is in thousands. Ramayana Katha. You will find thousands of people coming because it is a storytelling. It requires less of sattva to understand that story. but you require a good amount of sattva to understand a Paroksha Anubhuti or Patanjali Yoga Sutra or any Upanishad for that matter. If you want to study the Grantha called Bhamati by Sureswaracharya, it requires enormous amount of patience and understanding and twisting of the brain, which again is possible if you have Sattva Guna. So in other words, the gist is everything depends upon which station you are on. In the continuous progression of the jiva, in which birth and death are nothing else but the stations, each station decides, depending upon your previous karmas and state of mind, what type of person you are, what type of station you are in. So, that being the reason, the one who has done a lot of tapasya in the earlier period, he has done his chitta shuddhi and also controlled the chanchalata or the vikshep of the chitta. Who doesn't have a chitta chanchalata, such a person, supposing it is he is born again, then he already has a mind which is prepared for going into samadhi pada. He is called as Uttam Adhikari. So Uttam Adhikari directly goes into for the Samadhi Pada. Don't we have enough examples of this in India itself? Gurudeva was an Uttam Adhikari by past birth. Vivekananda, Shivananda Maharaj, Tapovan Maharaj, what they did? They just were born somehow, some college, something they did, and immediately they started proceeding towards search of a guru so that they could take their sadhana to the culmination. Why is it that it happened so fast with them? It is not fast. They were born as Uttam Adhikari because of many sadhana of many years before this birth. As contrast to this, there would be some who are still not Uttam Adhikari but still are struggling very hard. That means they do have Chanchala Chitta, but they are Chitta Shuddha. So those who are Chitta Shuddha but Chanchala Chitta, they are the one who are born this time, and they also immediately start their dhyanam because they now require to do dhyana, and dhyana for the Chanchala Chitta, that is called Kriya Yoga. What about those who have not even done that much of exercise? They would be born, but they would have an inclination to think that I should not be doing bad things in life. They are called Adhama Adhikari. And Adhama Adhikari does what? Adhama Adhikari does Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, and Pratyahara. These 5 of the Ashtanga Yogas are meant for Adhama Adhikari or the lower Adhikari. Even though it is called lower in comparison with the entire scale, we must understand that it is not easy to even come up to the Adhama Adhikari stage. Why? Because how many of us are following Yama, Niyama, Dhana, Dharana, Pratyahara, and Asana? Very, very few. Then what about the rest? Lower than this, they are called as Nishiddha Jana. Nishiddha, they are something to be condemned. Why condemned? Because they are not doing anything in terms of sadhana. Rather, because of preponderance of tamo and rajoguna and almost minuscule sattva guna, they are completely immersed into this world and creating new karma phalas. That means they have not even done the chitta shuddhi. So the steps or the classrooms are very clear. If you are born, first observe yourself. Observe. A very important fact in sadhaka life is to introspect. See who you are. Unfortunately, we have not had time to stop and observe ourselves. Don't try to call yourself great. Everyone tries to think that he is good. he's great. No. Be as discriminative as possible and try to analyze yourself through a serious introspection and see whether I am involved in this world in creating new karmas and expecting phalam out of it, whether desire is propelling like a fire my actions. That means I am miles away from sattva guna. If I am really serious about my own progress, spiritual progress, then how much of sattva guna I have, that will come out when you ask yourself, how many times I tried my level best to help the people around me? How many times I did not get agitated by whatever is happening around me? How many times I was able to control my anger even though the situation was not conducive to me? How many times I felt frustrated, hopeless when something bad happened to me? How many times I felt that, I am not getting this, I am not getting this, I am not, and my chitta is not prasanna. That would tell me whether I am nishiddha or adhamadhikari or madhyamadhikari or uttamadhikari. If I am nishiddha adhikari, my immediate job is to do everything for chitta shuddhi. And to do that for chitta shuddhi, I must improve my behavior with the people around me, which starts with from my family itself. Second thing is I should be a person like a sea or ocean, absorbing every problem of mine and as well as others in me. If I am selfish, thinking that, look, I have nothing to gain in it, every selfish act makes me further nishiddha. Only those who have done these unselfish acts, who are inching towards chitta shuddhi, they would have the emergence of sattva guna, which will propel them to go towards Bhagavad Gita or some scripture, or feeling great and revered about Gurudeva or Vivekananda. A nishiddha person feels revered towards the film heroes. He feels revered or he feels respect for those who have made tons of money. While the sattva guni, one who is doing his chitta shuddha in a little proper way, he slowly starts getting the sprouts of the seed of sattva guna, which will compel him. His mind will tell him it is better to go to Bhagavad Gita class. It is better to read some Upanishada. This tendency, this thought in the mind itself tells you that your chitta shuddhi is on the way. Mind well, you have to hold on to it. After the sufficient chitta shuddhi happens, automatically the second door opens. What is the second door? Only when the chitta shuddhi is complete, then only the dhyanam is possible, called upasana. So the adhama adhikari has to follow yama niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. Once he perfects these, then he becomes eligible for dhyana dharana samadhi. So he comes into what is called as a dhyana, and such a person automatically is graduated and given a certificate that you are now a madhyama adhikari. So the one who has become madhyama adhikari then undertakes kriya yoga with full force. Kriya yoga is to control the chanchalata of the chitta, or in Patanjali Maharaja's word, to subdue the vrittis. This Kriya yoga is comprising of tapa, swadhyaya, and Ishvara pranidhana. Tapa is austerity, but tapa really means anything that can be an obstacle to prasannata of the chitta should be annihilated. That is called tapas. For example, you're sitting and there is extreme cold around you, and you have nothing to wear on your body. You have nowhere to go, but you are somehow destined to suffer from the cold. Now, this cold is disturbing the mind. The mind is getting tossed around. You feel frustrated. You curse for not bringing the sweater. You curse for the surrounding. You curse even the God for giving the cold. That means the obstacle has created disturbance in your mind. That is not prasannata, chitta prasannata. That means you are not doing tapas. If you are able to tolerate a situation which is beyond your control, which has come to you because of your past karmas, without having any iota of restlessness in the mind, with a calm mind, if you're able to sustain the adversity, not only calm mind sustaining the adversity, but even in the cold, if you are feeling that, oh, it is such a nice thing, what is happening is the adversity also is not disturbing the chitta prasannata. That is called tapas. We always have unfortunate connotation of the word tapas. Tapas means we feel the guy has got up and gone to the Himalayas, sitting under a tree with a kamandalu. That is not. The danda and the kamandalu does not say tapas. Tapas is right where we are. The child comes and tells you, Dad, you don't know anything, you are a stupid person. Immediately the commotion starts, which should not start, then it becomes tapas. The wife comes and tells you that you are one of the most stupid I have married with. Someone comes and says that, oh hell, how are you? What kind of person are you? Insult. These are all non-conducive situations around you. See, the mind is used to the bards, the people who sing the praise for you, you like them, because that is what mind wants. But nindaka niyare rakhiye, those who criticize you, at that point of time, if the criticism does not create any flutter in the mind, then you are doing a tapas. You are working in a bank, and your boss constantly nudges you with the complaints. You don't do this, you don't do this. Even though when you are doing good, that is the time your tapas should be brought to the forefront. So tapas, then comes the swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is a constant practice of omkara japa and moksha shastra adhyayana. Mind well, right now what you are doing is sadhyaya, Patanjali Maharaj Sutra, and its study is swadhyaya. So tapa, swadhyaya means om pranavadi japa moksha shastra adhyayana. And the most important, the third part, which is also linked with the first two, is Ishwara Pranidhana. In Ishwara Pranidhana, every work we do, stop and think about it. I'm doing my job. For whom? Doing the job is my function. Outcome from the job is not my function. So we are constantly unhappy about the situation that we are in. I should have been paid more. We should have got bonus even though there is COVID. I should have got little more money from that man. This is all phala apeksha, desire. Simply work. And when you say simply work, how can you work without if there is no result? The result will come. Because the universal rule is, if a good seed is sown, there will be a sprout of a good crop. So you don't have to really worry whether a good act of mine will give me a good result. The good act always gives good results. The question is, the result that you see now is the result of the karma earlier. The present good karma shall give good results later. For example, all of a sudden when I get little money, when I did not think of it, achanak dhanalabh, at that point of time, we don't think, oh, from where did it come? I did not work for it. We say, no, I worked for it. You ascribe the reason the way you want. In the Lord's universe, it is not like that. So that is why karma and karma phala, surprisingly, although we are studying Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Patanjali Maharaj has studied karma and karma phala in detail. In fact, after this or maybe another pravachan, we are going to enter into a zone of karma and karma phala in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And the way Patanjali Maharaj has described how karma is produced, how phalams are produced, which karma produces which phalam. All the details are going to come, although it is a Yoga Shastra treatise. So that is why doing everything for the sake of the work or Lord, whichever way you call it, without expecting what is the result of it, or accepting whatever the result comes. Because supposing if I have deprived some person of his legitimate money in the past life, in this life, because I have to pay for it, it may happen that I have earned the money, but somebody else took it away. Now, that was the time we feel that, oh, I did not get the phalam. Why? Because I worked for it and somebody else took it away. The reason for that is you took it away in the previous birth, which you are not aware of. Then what is left in your hand? You can cry, split your hairs, maybe snatch your face, scratch your face, do whatever. You have to accept. Then why not to accept it in a very royal manner by understanding karma phala vipaka? This is Ishwara Pranidhana. So those who have done these three with intense exercise, being Madhyam Adhikari, then what happens to them? Their chitta starts becoming steady. And such a steady chitta then loosens the kleshas. Mind well, the whole problem with our life is pancha klesha. The simple autobiographical statement of every one of us is the one who is suffering from 5 kleshas, because these are the ultimate result or parinama of wrong perception of this world. These 5 kleshas which have gripped us can be loosened by Kriya Yoga. First, they are to be loosened and then they are to be burnt. First, understand what the 5 kleshas are. Work towards reducing its sthula parinama. Then work towards loosening them into sukshma parinama. And once these kleshas are sukshma, then dissolve them and make them unproductive or dagdha bija. Burn the seed. That is the procedure. So the adhama adhikari tries to reduce the kleshas. Madhyam adhikari tries to loosen the kleshas. Uttama adhikari tries to burn the kleshas forever. For burning the kleshas, you require samahita chitta, concentrated mind, which is there with the uttama adhikari. For loosening the kleshas, you require dhyana yukta chitta, which is there with the madhyama adhikari who does kriya yoga. With the adhama adhikari, to reduce the kleshas, you require chitta shuddhi exercise or sattva guna, which is available with the adhama adhikari. These are the steps given by Patanjali Maharaj. Now comes the question, which are those 5 kleshas? Klesha means trouble. Klesha means that which causes unhappiness. Klesha means that which troubles, torments the mind. The 5 types of torments are avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, pancha klesha. There are 5 types of kleshas. We tried to saw in the last lecture what is this kleshas and how do they work. The kleshas are the result of karya karana parampara. Our whole life, it may be manifesting as body, as eyes, as function, as world, as interaction, as transition. That's all a part. The whole life is nothing else but karya karana parampara. What is karya karana parampara? I have a function. The function is because of a cause. I am suffering. This is the karya. Indriyas, through indriyas, I am suffering. Why we are suffering? Because the karana is sharira. Why karana is sharira? Because this sharira itself has then karya of some other karana. What is the karana of the sharira? The karana of the sharira is sukha, is papa punya. Why Sukha Dukkha? Why Sukha Dukkha? Sukha Dukkha has a karan called Papa Punyam. Then Papa Punyam has a karan called Avidya. So that is how Karya Karana Parampara. But suppose Avidya is removed, then there is no Karana. Because of which the Karya also Samaptam Bhavati. So Karya Karana Parampara, which leads to Karma Phala Parampara, is all because of these kleshas. And these kleshas are important because they cause us three types of problems. The Trividha Tapa, the Adhyatmika Tapa, Roga Kshudhadika Dukkha is Adhyatmika Tapa. Roga, disease, Kshudha, hunger, thirst. These are called Adhyatmika Tapa. Chora Vyagra Sarpadika Dukkha, Adhibhautika. Something from outside. The thief, the tiger. These are all Adhibhautika Tapa. Yaksha Rakshasa Pishacha Shita Vatadhika Tapa is called Adhidaivika Tapa. You may get possessed by a spirit. Now that is called Adhidaivika Tapa. You may get blasted by a blistering lightning. Adhidaivika Tapa. These three tapas are the manifestations of Pancha Kleshas. So that means we are suffering from Trividha Tapa in our life, but the reason for Trividha Tapa is Pancha Klesha. Out of this Pancha Klesha, the most important Klesha is Avidya. Why? Avidya Kshetram Uttareshan Prasupta Tanu Vichinna Udaranam. The remaining four Kleshas, which one? The Asmita, the Raga, the Dvesha, and the Abhinivesha, these four actually grow on the ground of Avidya. So Avidya is the most important kshetram of all that. Now these four which we talked, the Raga, Dvesha, Asmita, and Abhinivesha, these kleshas are present in four different forms. Let us take one of them and understand so all others will be understood. We know Raga. Now, Raga is quite a broad concept, but the commonest Raga that we know is anger, Krodha. Now, in Krodha, right now I'm talking to you, where is the Krodha? Does that mean I am without anger? I am angerless? No. Right now it is not coming up because I'm speaking something nice. So the Krodha now is there already inside me, but it is lying in the dormant condition. It is called Prasupta. This is called Prasupti. Now then what happens? Somebody after the lecture, my wife tells me something and I get angry. What happened now? It came out. Udar. This is called Udara Avastha. Prasupta Udar. Now there are some people who even if you just look at them, they become angry. While there are some people, even if you shout at them, they try to remain calm. What is the difference between the anger of these two people? In the case of a calm person, the anger is made a little smaller or loose. It is called Tanutva. Tanutva means reducing or loosening the anger. So the anger is still there, but not like a violent temper. Violent temper or frank expression is Udarata. Nil expression, dormancy is Prasuptata. Limited expression is Tanuta or Tanutva. And there is another thing called Vichinna. So many kleshas, manifestations are there that if somebody is having moha for a lady, one lady is there and he is having moha for that particular lady, then what about other ladies? When he's focusing on one lady, other ladies are out of his mind. Later on, one of that lady also comes, he will again be moha will be there. But when he's looking at lady number one, the moha for lady number two is not there. This is called vichinna avastha. That means you have klesha, but it is applied on one point, and because it is applied on one point, it is absent on another point. When there is a temptation for food, temptation for sex is away from you. A temptation for Sex is there, temptation for food is away from you. This is called vichinnata. So the kleshas, which one? Asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha, all grow on the ground of avidya. They manifest in four forms, which is prasupta, tanutva, vichinnata, and udarata, lying dormant, loosened, and expressed, that is full expression, and alternative expression. Once we know this, then it is easier to know what is avidya. Avidya has been specifically described as anything that is anitya, ashuchi, dukkhatma, and anatma. If you think that it is nitya, shuchi, sukha, and atman, it is called avidya. For example, anitya. When we look at the sun, we feel that, oh, sun is there forever. Why? You feel nityatva in sun. In relation to our life, of course, but you do feel that this world is going to last forever. This is called anityata is there, but you feel it is nitya. Ashuchi. Ashuchi. Ashuchi is of different types. Shari is extremely unclean. Ashuchi. Why? Because the place where you are born is full of filth. The food that we eat ultimately gets converted to filth. We have urine, sweat, all waste products inside this body. That's why it is parama bibatsa. The fourth thing is, this body is going to die. Anything that dies cannot be a good thing. And then adheya shauchatva. If you don't take a bath for 1 month, you start smelling. That means you require constant cleaning because you're not clean. Such 5 things are there in this sharira, but we feel sharira is clean. My body is so beautiful. This is called ashuchi, is being referred now as a shuchi, shuddhata, by us. This is avidya. So this is another thing. Then in case of dukkha, dukkhe sukham khyati. My son stood first in university. We feel happy about it. It is not a happiness, it is dukkham, because it may come in the garb of sukha, but the karanam ultimately leads to the dukkham. Because if the son standing first in university is sukham, then why it doesn't last? Neither for the boy nor for the father. That is called dukkhe sukham khyati. The place where sukha is seen is actually dukkha, but we call it a sukha. That is another problem of avidya. Anatma. Anatmani atma khyatihi. What is anatmani atma khyatihi? Chara and achara, or chetan and achetan padartha. Chetan padartha, patni, putra, pashu. Achetan padartha, bed, chair, car. We feel they are atmani. How do we feel that? If you don't feel a metallic structure called car, the moment there is a stamp on it as Porsche, we feel, I must have it. I like it. That means a chetan vastu, you feel chetan, that is why you are liking it. Similarly, putra patni, this chetan padartha is anatma. Because what is inside the patni is Atman. Atman, hers and mine is one. But still I consider her as different and I consider her as Atman. That is why Chetan achetene shubhog adhishtane shariro purushopakarane anatmani manasi atma khyatihi. So these 5 ways avidya expresses itself. That means avidya has 4 feet. It's a creature with 4 feet. Anitya, ashuchi, dukkha, anatma. These are the 4 feet. Now comes the question, and a very important question, a philosophical question. We know Vidya. Vidya does exist because you learn Vidya, which is secular knowledge, but in Adhyatma, Vidya means that which can defeat the Maya. So if I am able to, all this dhanam and everything, what I am doing is to get that ultimate knowledge of Atman, that itself is called Vidya. And now we are talking about avidya. So is avidya absence of vidya, or avidya is present by as a thing in itself? In other words, does avidya have positive existence or negative existence? For example, when we say light, prakasha. So when we say prakasha, prakash exists by itself. But when we say andhakara, darkness, is darkness darkness, or is darkness absence of light? Think. There are two possibilities. One is darkness can exist by itself. There is something called darkness, or darkness could mean simply absence of light. So that means darkness doesn't have any existence. The existence is there for light. Either you have light, you don't have light. When you have light, it is called light. When you don't have light, it is called darkness. So that means it is the two manifestations of presence and absence of light. This is one way of looking. Or the other way is no. Light is a substance which comes, it gives light, so it is called light. Darkness is a substance which comes and gives darkness to us. If the way this is thought, similarly, vidya and avidya, are these two separate existing things, or absence of vidya is avidya? This has philosophical importance. And that is why Patanjali Maharaj says that avidya has its own existence. It is not mere absence of vidya. So the example given is when you say a mitra, mitra means friend. A mitra means not a friend. So not a friend means enemy. The enemy does exist. So similarly, when you say avidya, that means avidya does exist. It is a positive existence. So avidya is vidya viparita jnanantaram. Avidya is a knowledge that is opposite to vidya. That is how the Bhashyakara and Patanjali Maharaj talks about avidya. It's a little complicated philosophical subject, and Jnaneshwar Maharaj in Amruta Anubhava entirely talks about this avidya and ajnana. Now, ajnana is different, avidya is different in a different sense. So in that, the ajnanam has been completely refuted by Jnanadeva Maharaj, saying that ajnanam doesn't have existence by itself. It is only the jnanam that has existence. But in case of vidya and avidya, because there is a difference between vidya and jnanam. One is the methodology, one is the strategy, one is the instrument, one is the achievement. Think about this. It's subject to ponder. But besides point, what the Patanjali Maharaj is trying to say, that avidya is of such a type. Then comes the question, after the avidya, the next klesha is dukkha. Now, what is the next klesha? That is asmita. So avidya, asmita. Asmita is the word that we have heard so many times in our lectures, in our pravachana, in Bhagavad Gita, in Upanishada. Asmita's precise definition is druk darshana shaktoho ekatmata eva asmita. Druk darshan shaktoho ekatmata eva asmita. Asmita is apparent oneness, apparent integrity of druk shakti and darshana shakti. Now, a very simple question is, what is druk and what is darshana? Druk shakti is purusha or atman. We are not using the word atman because we are in Sankhya Yoga darshanam. In Sankhya Yoga, it is purusha. Druk shakti is the chetana, is the consciousness, is the purusha. Darshana shakti is buddhi. Purusha is druk shakti, buddhi is darshana shakti. When they are not seen separately, but seen together or integrated, then that klesha is called asmita. Why it is not seen separately, or why it should be seen separately? Because the druk shakti or the chetana or the consciousness or the purusha is bhoktru shakti, while buddhi is bhogya shakti. Bhoktru and bhogya are different. The electricity that runs into the wire is the bhoktru shakti or the initiator or the purusha. The fan or the tube light which runs on that is darshan shakti. We are able to see the manifestation of electricity as light through tube light. So what tube light is doing? It is just giving darshanam of that shakti. So it is darshan shakti, or it is bhogya shakti. But who is making it possible? The electricity current, the bhoktru shakti. Similarly, I am able to enjoy a food that is my favorite dish. I am able to enjoy. The enjoyment is happening through the indriya called mouth or the rasam, which is perceived in buddhi, but neither buddhi nor the indriya will be able to do any function unless these two have been further interpreted in the light of something. So if buddhi is mirror, then in the mirror only the light can be reflected. Suppose the light is there, but the mirror is not there. So there is no reflection at all. But if the mirror alone is there, but the light is not there, there will be no reflection at all. So mirror is nothing else but the one who is helping in reflecting the light. Similarly, buddhi is nothing but the reflector of the chaitanyam through the indriyas on the subject or the object. Once a vastu or the object is illuminated with the help of indriyas, eyes, by taking the recourse of the buddhi, which in turn is borrowing the power from the purusha, then the seeing is completed. That is why one must understand that everything happens in the buddhi, but buddhi is jada, inert. This is a very important point or a development in philosophy, because there are many who think buddhi itself is the last station. There is nothing beyond buddhi. Buddhi itself is Atma. The one who thinks on these lines are the Buddhist religion. Buddhism or Bauddha, and more so Kshanika Vijnana Bauddha, Vijnanavadi, they think everything is perceived here as moment to moment thing in the brain. I see something, that moment is gone, another moment, another moment, another moment, another moment. So there is Vijnana or happenings at a successive phase, like a movie reel that is going through the screen in the place called brain. That is why brain is Atman according to Vijnanavadi people. However, Sankhya as well as Advaita, they feel no, buddhi is inert. It appears the buddhi has done something, but it has done it on the satta or the power of the chaitanyam behind it, which is called as bhoktru shakti. That is why those who have, through their contemplation or sadhana or dhyanam, have done the continuous meditation, after the meditation, they are able to see clearly the difference between buddhi and purusha, bhogya shakti and bhoktru shakti. And that is the reason why a yogi who has attained a sampradnyat samadhi, for him, whatever is happening in this world, he is able to see that it is happening only in the buddhi. And the one on the basis of which it is happening, they are able to perceive right there and there itself. So nothing affects them. None of the kleshas affect them. They are klesha virahita, klesha rahita, because they are able to see the Bhoktur Shakti and the Bhogya Shakti separately. So what happens is the Druk Shakti or the Bhoktru Shakti, which is called as Druk Shakti in the Sutra, the Druk Shakti is the power that sees. Pashyati iti Druk. That is the definition. That is why the word used in Sanskrit for Druk Shakti or Chaitanyam is Pashyati. And what about the Darshana Shakti Buddhi? Drushyate anen iti darshanam eva shakti is darshana shakti. Drushyate. That is the reason drushyate and pashyate, these are two different words in Sanskrit. That is why dhyana vastit yad gatena manasa pashyanti yam yogino. Yogi pashyati drukshakti. See the subtle difference. Wherever the word pashyati comes, that means you are talking of a yogi's vision. Whenever you say drushya, our vision, common man's vision, that is the difference between seeing. This is precisely what J. Krishnamurti calls art of seeing. We are not able to see the beauty of a tree because we see it as drushyate through our buddhi. While a yogi sees the tree through druk shakti, that is the reason they pashyati. That is the reason why Tapovana Maharaj used to get spellbound in Uttarkashi in severe cold. He was spellbound with the majesty of the snow-clad mountains, and he used to stop while walking Gurudeva and used to tell Gurudeva, Chinmaya, look at the beauty of this majestic Himalayas. He was able to see that because he was able to see it as a manifestation of consciousness or Purusha. So this ability to see Druk Shakti and Drushya Shakti separately is possible only when Asmita is dissolved, and that is dissolved by Dhyanam, which is called as a Viveka Khyati. So this is about Asmita. What about Raga? Sukhanushay Ragaha. See how compact the sutra is. Patanjali Maharaj does not use even a pronunciation. Forget about the word extra, because it's sutra, tightly compacted, terse. Sukhanushay Ragaha. Raga means anger is a most stupid connotation we have in our mind. Raga means desire. Raga. Raga means desire. The mind getting tainted, painted, or colored by wants is called raga. So raga is that klesha which occurs because of dependence on sukha, sukhanushayi. That which shete, which depends on sukham, is raga. So that means whatever we do for the sake of sukham leads to the klesha called ragam. That is the reason why our constant endeavor for sukha is giving us unhappiness. Now, how does this work? Raga, or the desire, is nothing else but the memory of past experience of sukham. Listen carefully. Raga is nothing else but the memory of the past experience of sukham, or items that are instrumental in that sukham and hankering for that item is called raga. That means raga happens because of two things. One, either you are remembering the past sukham that you have enjoyed. Oh, that particular vada that I had in that restaurant is such a beautiful, I must have it again. Now you start hankering for it because of your past experience. One. If I tell you that there is an animal called armadillo in Latin America, you will not have anything in your mind because you have not seen the animal. So you don't have any desire to see that animal also. You will just be curious. I don't know what it is. It doesn't create any flutter in the mind because there's no past experience. So sukham is nothing else but the re-remembrance of the past sukham or the instrument used for that sukham. For example, you had a ride in Porsche of your friend. After few days, you feel that ride, how beautiful it was, that Porsche. Now the instrument for the sukham. The ride was the sukham, but not having Porsche by myself, the instrument also became a instrument for sukham. So thinking or hankering or chasing or thinking constantly about past sukha or its instrument is called raga. And such a person is called sukhabhidnya. Now comes the question. I have never been the president of America, but why is it that I have a desire to become president of America? I want to be the billionaire. I have never been billionaire. But why am I having the desire to be billionaire or higher money? There's some explanation has to be there. The Bhashyakar gives explanation here that if there is a desire about something which you do not have experienced in this life, then you must have experienced that in the previous life. If you had been the ruler, let us say you were earlier the leader of a group or a flock of monkeys. So you were a Vanar Raja. Then subsequently, if you are born as a human being, you will also have the desire to control the people. I want to be CEO so that the whole company is under me. This is the same thing because you were the earlier Vanara Raja, the concept of kingship is already there in your mind. So that is why when you remember past sukham means not only of this birth, of the yester births. That is the reason, sir, in this birth you are trying to study the books which you have half left incomplete in the past birth. It was our desire to study Patanjali Yoga Sutra in the past. That is now getting fructified. That is how everything is unfolding of the past desires. So Sukhanushai Ragaha. Similarly, exactly opposite is Dveshaha. Dukkham is Dukkhanushai Dveshaha. So aversion is that which dwells on pain. Now, supposing that past sukham is making me have again that sukham. So past dukkham, I don't want to have. It's exactly opposite procedure. So you want to annihilate, remove, completely destroy anything that caused dukkham in the past. So the anger or the violent vritti that you get towards the destruction of that which caused you dukkham in the past is called dukkha. That desire is called dukkha. So we had seen avidya, asmita, raga, dukkha, and the last is abhinivesha. Swar savahi vidisho api tatha arudo abhiniveshaha. Swar savahi swasya rasaha iti swarasaha. Vahi, flowing. What it means? Intense desire to keep one's own presence and be always there in the form of vasana is called swarasavahi. In other words, I should never die. I should ever be living. That means I should ever be present. This is called abhinivesha. And this affects even the intelligent people. Vidusho api tatha arudho. What is this intense desire? Every jiva thinks that there should be no occasion when I am not there. Think of yourself. Nobody wants that he should be absent. He should be present. He should be always there. Even if the world is lost, even the world is destroyed, I should not be destroyed. Ma na bhuvam. I am not there should not happen. Ma na bhuvam. Bhuyasam. Me always should be there. I should always be there. May I not cease to be. That is called abhinivesha. That is the reason we are scared of death. We don't want mrityu because mrityu means we feel, oh, I'll be gone. What if I'm not there? That's why we say another 20 years, maybe I will not be there. We don't say, after 20 years, I will. No, it gives dukkham, klesha. Abhinivesh, because abhinivesh is klesha. Abhinivesh is mrityu bhaya. marana trasa anubhavajanya sanskar. Why this has happened? None of us have died so far. Then why we are scared of death? Because you can, unless you experience something, you cannot be good or bad. You cannot have good or bad opinion about it. Now, death is not experienced by anybody, yet you don't want it. See the irony. Unless you experience something, you cannot form an opinion. I have not experienced death, yet I am not liking the death. Why? And I cannot see the death by any pramana also, pratyaksha, anumana, agama, because even if I read 10,000 pages about death, I will not get experience. I cannot make tarka, logic about anumana, about death, that it could be like this. Yesterday when I got up from the sleep, something similar to sleep. No, it doesn't give that feeling, that jnanam. Pratyaksha mrityu I have not yet seen. And yet I am scared of it. Why? Because, as the Bhashyakar says very clearly, because we have died in the past. Marana dukkhanubhava of past births is causing marana trasa anubhava janya sanskar, so abhinivesha. That is why 5 kleshas, avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. These 5 kleshas are constant afflictions, obstructions, obstacles in our life, and that is our autobiography. Yogi tries to annihilate these 5 through yoga. It could be either kriya yoga, meant for the madhyamadhikari, or the yama niyama, asana pranayama pratyahara for the adhama purush, adhama adhikari, or for the samahita chitta. Through the asampradnyat samadhi, he wants to burn the seeds of all the 5 kleshas. That is the scheme of things for the progression of yoga according to Patanjali Yoga Shastra. As you must have observed, Patanjali Maharaj is coming from the pinnacle of Himalayas down. He started with sadhana, samadhi pada. For the people who are already samahita chitta, he started talking about sampradnyata, etc. Then he came down to kriya yoga. Then he came down to klesha. Now he's coming down to adhama adhikari. Then he's going to go to the ashtanga yoga. So we are always constantly thinking, where is the literature for me? The literature for us is now going to come down the line. That is why the klishtata, or the difficulty of the subject, has become much lesser in this pada than compared to the samadhi pada. It was very difficult to understand. Now slowly we are coming towards within the fold of our understanding, because now the sadhana is coming towards the adhama adhikari. Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Mudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Sanjay, just something on. I just want to know whether there is any when they talk about Kriya Yoga. I know there are no techniques or anything mentioned here, but a lot of Kriya Yogis, or if you read autobiography of a yogi or anything, they always talk of burning karma through some of the Kundalini pranayam and stuff like that. Each breath, which has various techniques. Is that possible at all?
It is possible. It definitely happens. It can be done. It happens with intention, or it can happen automatically. But the only thing that one has to remember is, it is possible for a madhyama adhikari. So the person has to graduate to the level Madhyama Adhikari. That means the one who has done complete Chitta Shuddhi and is now trying to control Vyuthana or Chanchalta of the Chitta through Upasana or Dhanam. So only the yogi who is fit for meditation is the only one who can undertake Kriya Yoga. And while undertaking Kriya Yoga, depending upon the guru that he has, the guiding spirit that he has, he may opt for the technical differences. Now, some of them by sheer dhanam, when they are going into the meditative state itself, it automatically is on the backdrop of that meditation, the Kundalini Jagruti is automatically happening. So if the intention of the mind is focused towards the Kundalini, then the experience is gained as if of the Kundalini, because he's focusing it there. For example, a bhakta who is singing the glory of Rama, he is talking about Rama, Rama, Rama. Where is he talking about Kundalini? But his Kundalini is automatically becoming Jagruta. So that is why whether you intentionally do pranayama or you do dhanam and pranayama happens to you, these are the things which are going parallel to each other. They are ekasamaya vachede. So it is like this. Somebody who is cooking a particular vegetable, he may be looking at the salt and then putting it in this, looking at the spices, then putting into it. But an experienced lady will just put hand without even knowing that it is salt, because she knows these are going to go into this. The awareness or non-awareness of Kundalini and its manifestation depends upon the methodology adopted. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did not do Kundalini Yoga by itself. But when somebody asked him, the Shashyas, that please demonstrate to us, he actually sat for the demonstration and demonstrated it. Because such a thorough mind, such a thorough vritti virahita chitta can adopt to anything. So that is the only difference, but it does happen.
You also mentioned that our desire for something in this life is because of a desire in the past, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it all presumes that there is something in the past, and it's a bit of a chicken and an egg situation, right? Which came in the sense, where did it start from?
Yes. Where did avidya start? That is your actual question. What is the beginning of avidya? And for that, I will resort to only Swami Vivekananda's answer, because he says no one knows when avidya started, and it is an avakruta prashna. The reason is the depth and the vastness of that question cannot be grappled by a buddhi of yours and mine, because for that you require rutambara buddhi to know. And the question is, by the time you get rutambara buddhi, the question doesn't remain. So that is why when avidya started, we do not know. And that is why Vivekananda was asked this question and is given an emphatic answer, that we Hindus are bold enough to say that we do not know when the avidya started. So it is called anadi. It can be ended, that we know. But when did it start? We do not know. So it is anadi, but santa. It can be ended. This is the reply given by Swami Vivekananda, and we adhere to that. Hari.
So you also mentioned that in Buddhism they only stick to buddhi.
Yes.
Now there is, they also have a lot of traditions for meditation and breathing, and they talk of prajna, and which is
Yes.
insight. The same you were referring to the Rutambra buddhi, and so how will you get that insight if you believe that it's all only buddhi?
Yes. If I give a mango to you to eat, and I say that please eat this coconut, so what happens is you may call it coconut, but it will definitely taste like a mango only. So it's in the same manner, when they are talking of this buddhi, let me explain now that you have asked this question. The Kshanika Vijnanavadi Buddha, what they feel is buddhi is the Atman, or buddhi is the end. There is nothing beyond buddhi. There is no Atman. Buddhi is the end. Why do they feel so? They feel that every time buddhi is perceiving something. So let us say I perceived A, immediately I will be perceiving B, because A becomes dead. Then B is perceived, B is dead, C is perceived, C is dead, D is perceived. Even when I'm looking at only one thing, I'm not looking at the thing in itself, because every second that thing itself is changing. So that means in this world, the whole world is nothing else but a flux of ever changing things, ever changing entities. So what is actually happening? What is happening is there is a queue of things, there is a line of things. The first one is experience, it's gone. Second one is then experience, gone, experienced and gone, experienced and gone. So these are called as lining or queuing of manifestations seen by buddhi. That is called vithi. Vithi. Vithi is a word in Sanskrit which is used in Buddhism, which means line or succession of happenings which are perceived by the brain. Now, there, according to their dhanam, they say when the buddhi is not perceiving these things, so between the two vithis, one thing A happened, thing B happened. Between thing A and B, there is a microscopic gap. If you are able to catch that microscopic gap, then that is the point when nothing is happening, that is dhanam. See, what has happened? Explanation has changed. Actually, they are talking of the same dhanam which is there in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Only the technical methodology of explanation is different. So according to them, the gap between two vrittis, what do you do when you do dhanam? You do not let anything come to your mind. So in the mind, when one thing comes and it dies and the second thing arises, there is a gap between the two. That gap itself is a dhanam. And that gap happens when you eat anything that you like, when you see anything that you like. Whatever gives you happiness in life is nothing else but a point when no vrittis are arising. But because one vritti stops and another arises, and there is a gap which is pretty fast, you think it is a continuity, and you give that particular reason for anandam to that subject or to the object. So it is not the vada or the dosa that is giving us happiness. It is the vada that subdues vritti number one, and before vritti number two comes, we get microscopic anand. We ascribe it to that dosa, but it is because of vritti stoppage. Similarly, here in Buddhism, they say one experience experienced by the buddhi and the another experience experienced by the buddhi, there is a gap between the two. Focus on that gap. That is their dhanam. So ultimately, it is coming to the same. That is why they get the same experience. Yogi gets the same experience. Reasons are different. In fact, Buddha is extremely silent about Atman. He has neither said Atman exists or doesn't exist. Later on, Theravada, Swatantravadins, Vijnanachari, Yogachari, they came out with different interpretation. Buddha himself was very practical person, as Vivekananda says. He said, all you need to do is get out of all these kleshas and dukkhas, work on it. Whether Atma exists, not exists, don't bother about it. These are all theoretical propositions. That's why Buddha was the first who said that just think about the gap between these two vrittis and try to subdue your mind. When he's talking about subduing the mind, stopping the vrittis, he's again talking of the Yoga Shastra. Methodologies are different, narrations are different, philosophies are built on different platforms. That is why Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, somebody calls it a Niram, somebody calls it Jalam, somebody calls it a Pani, but it is all water, nothing else. Hari Om.
So one thing relating to last time's class, you had mentioned that our past, the prarabdha already decides ayu, that is our age, and
Yes.
So see, tell us, with all this medical advancement that happens, and life expectancy is increasing.
Yes.
So how is this explained in this context?
Yeah. They are talking about ayu. Life expectancy is ayu. So jati, ayu, bhoga, these are three decided by prarabdha. The ayu gets decided by the prarabdha simply because of the bhoga that has come in that particular life. If the total quantum of karmashaya or the prarabdha given to you in this birth is is to be experienced, or bhogyata for that is only 40 years, you will live for 40 years. If the bhogyata is for 100 years, you will live for 100 years. It all depends upon how much withdrawal has been made from that particular account. Now, on an average, if you find life expectancy is increasing, What it means is the medical instruments or the medical advancement itself is a instrument through which this particular thing is happening. But the very reason why it is happening is could be because the people who are supposed to have this particular allotment, this allotment is decided by the Lord depending upon which birth of which community, in which place, in which country, during which period it is happening. So it is said that some time back, it is said, we don't know, it is said that the people were as tall as 7 feet during Ramayana period or whatever. And now why that much of height was required? Why not 5 feet 3 inches? Why we have two eyes which are not slanted upwards or slanted downwards? All the rachana, structural changes are commensurate with the bhogyam or the bhagyam that is there for that particular community, individual, nation, and the world. Based on that, the sthityantara is happening. So perhaps in the current sthityantara, we are having longer life as of date. But then sometimes it is said that the life in the earlier year, if you look at the narrations in Upanishads and the Vedas, we are talking of 125 years. Jivite Shatagam Samaha. What does that mean in Ishavasya Upanishad? Live for 100 years. That means the person must be living for 100 years then. Then what happened? Then came Adhidaivika Trasa. The plague came. The drought came. The famine came. People started dying in 40, 50. Then there was wars were happening. It was very rare to see in the medieval period also, anybody living beyond 50, 60 years. Then what happens? The peace prevailed. 2 world wars happened, the peace prevailed. Now the peace is there, medical advancement is there, people are having longer life. These are all nothing else but interrelated things that are controlled and managed in a manner which is called as karmana gahanogati. It is not easy to decipher how things are controlled. A murderer murders a person. At that point of time, the person who is murdered, it is because of his prarabdha. But what about the guy who is taking knife in his hand and murdering him? It is also because of his prarabdha. Then how did they meet? That is also because of the prarabdha. So how this functioning that somebody is committing a tamas krutya, somebody is suffering because of his previous tamas krutya, and these two people have come together and this act happened. Now, how this all happened, if we start analyzing, we'll realize that the karmas are so intricately intertangled with each other that it is very difficult to take it logically unless we understand a broader understanding, like there is a karma, there is a phala, there is a karma phala ashaya, and that has to be exhausted. So there is karma phala vipaka, and that is how it goes. Now, what is the guarantee that it happens this way? The yogis who did their best of their acts for the chitta shuddhi, they proved, because they are the ones who have this knowledge to understand whole thing in totality. That is why, what is the reason why Swami Vivekananda made a beautiful poem on Kali Mata, saying that, oh Kali Mata, you are so beautiful, you come in the form of a plague. Now, is plague a good thing for us? We will say, no, corona is a very bad thing, plague is a very bad thing. And who is praising that plague and corona? The Swami Vivekananda is praising the plague, saying that Kali Ma came in that form. So destruction also is divine play. That destruction which appears for a limited intellect as annihilation is actually nothing else but the paving the way for further progress. Now, this is to be seen on a larger canvas. That buddhi to have larger canvas, we don't have it at present. So it may remain puzzled for us. But in a truer sense, it definitely has sense as we move upwards. In fact, those who have moved upwards, they directly come and ask you a question. What are you asking about this IU and medical and all that? The world hasn't happened. So no question arises. There is no avidya. There is no world. Gaudapadacharya has written that Ajatavadi is what? The world hasn't happened. Now, how do you explain all these kleshas and everything? So that all those insights are possible at a much higher realms of consciousness. At the level that we have to depend only on agama or the shabda pramana. That is the reason where we are trying to take the recourse to Bhashyams and the Patanjali Maharaj to understand what they are saying. They have gravitated down to our level. Gurudeva or Vivekananda or Patanjali Maharaj. Hari Om.
one last thing on breath, because
Yeah.
we're in, earlier on we've talked about managing breath, and obviously uh, there is history that says that the less you breathe, right? So a tortoise lives for 200 years because it breathes so much lesser than a dog that lives for. So on one hand, we talk of managing breath and reducing uh, the number of breaths per minute, because that improves the quality of life, or it
Yeah.
elongates the quality of life. And on the other hand, there is physical medical evidence that says that you should be running and getting your heart rate up and down, and because the heart needs to pump, which are two for a healthy life. Now, is there some both required? Is two opposing philosophies, or it's together? Just some explanation on that.
They are absolutely not opposing at all. Medical as well as this yogic philosophy, they're absolutely parallel to each other. They are not crossing each other's territory at all. For example, the cardiovascular fitness, if you look at it medically, what it means that make your heart as strong as possible so that it did not pump too many times within a minute. So your heart rate, which is normally about 72 to 73 as per the medical knowledge, if it starts dropping down, then your heart is becoming more competent unless you have a disease. In some diseases, it goes down, but that's a diseaseful condition. But in a normal healthy condition, if the heart beats for the lesser number of beats, that means you have a healthy heart. As you know, the runner, the Usain Bolt, has a heart rate of about 35. The Carl Lewis used to have a heart rate of 34. That is because of cardiovascular fitness. And this fitness drops the heart rate. And I need not boast about myself, but I have myself observed that the heart rate which I had to about 80 or so has now fallen back to about 45 to 48 after the fitness that I have achieved. Now, this fitness is possible because of a constant practice which is given. So the proportion of the body weight and the exercise you undertake, it makes the heart competent enough. Then what happens with this particular heart rate dropping? Naturally, the oxygenation required for the body is very less. That's why the heart is beating less. When the body's oxygen level has dropped because you are now into a fine weight category, you are physically fit, naturally you don't require to draw oxygen too much from outside, so your respiratory rate also drops. And that is why one good breath, when you take, is enough to oxygenate the entire cells of the body. Unfortunately, we don't breathe properly. So if you take deep breaths, then it is equivalent to the 3 breaths that you have. So that is the reason. And when are you going to take deep breath? Only when you are focusing on the breath. When you are angry, you can't be breathing normally. In anger, you have short breaths. That means every time you fall prey to the kleshas, your body changes in the constitution, which is manifested by faster breath, pounding heart, sweating, tremors, trembling. And exactly reverse happens in yoga. In meditation, by deliberately cooling down, loosening your body, slowing your activities, slowing the activities of even the thoughts, your breath automatically starts dropping down, the breathing becomes deep. So you can either catch hold of the tail of the effects or catch hold of the cause. To catch hold of the tail of the effects is to directly catch the breath and work on it. So you're reversely working, but working for the same end. Or you can work from the cause side, that don't be angry, be cool, calm, peaceful, and don't let thought comes to your mind. Then naturally the effect will also go down, the respiration will go down. It depends on where you start. If you start from breath, you're starting hatha yoga. If you start from mind, you're starting raja yoga. Hari Om.